The Giants have fired Pat Shurmur, something that a lot of us saw coming. I mean, there was a slight chance he could return. The Giants had a stronger finish to the end of the season. I mean, they were terrible the first half of the year. They lost 9 straight games or something like that. And it was a rough season overall. They go 4-12. They were 5-11 the year before. So I mean, I think his record is 9-23 as the Giants head coach, and I think that's his same record in Cleveland. So it's pretty funny that's the record for both of his tenures as head coach. So part of me wants to thank Pat Shurmur because things here never got too bad in the locker room. I mean, I'm sure a lot of guys on this team were fed up and pissed off, and I'm sure there were many times where Pat could have lost the locker room, but he kept his guys motivated. They played very hard throughout the season, no matter what. Obviously, we differ, with his philosophy as a head coach. He was not good at some things, obviously, the time management, timeouts, the challenges, some play calling issues and stuff like that. Some of the communication inside the building was not great with Pat Shurmur. So there were some issues, obviously, and I'm not too mad about him being fired. I don't think he's a great coach by any means. I wouldn't even call him a good coach. I think he's an average coach at best. But obviously it annoys me that the GM who picks his players gets to stay and he doesn't. I mean, I just felt that Pat Shurmur is a scapegoat here because he really had no chance to win regardless. I mean, you could have put a great coach here and they probably would have went 7-9, 8-8 at best. I mean, this roster was not good enough to win this year. Even last year, in my opinion, was bad as well. So I think Pat Shurmur did about all he could with a roster that's just not that good. And I listened to the John Mara press conference, and it was just a lot of weird stuff. And it was like it was weird because he was talking a lot about, he had a gut feeling that Pat Shurmur wasn't the right guy, and kind of talked about how he didn't have the players here to make it work. But then he's not talking about the guy who is picking the players and signing the players and drafting the players, and I don't know. It just didn't make sense to me. You guys know how I feel about this. I wanted the GM and the head coach tied together in this case, and I just don't think they're going about it the right way. And in a way, it sounds like Gettleman's on the hot seat as well. I feel like if they come out next year and don't have a good year and they win less than 8 games or something like that, I feel like his time here is done, Gettleman. So, I mean, look, I just don't agree with the philosophy, obviously. I think they should have just started fresh. They should have got a new head coach and a new GM right now. But for some reason, they half-ass it once again. I mean, literally did the same thing in 2015 where they fired Tom Coughlin and then 2 years later fired Jerry Reese. And we know how that went. It's just an awkward situation, and that's not how you should do things when you're hiring a head coach and a GM in the NFL. But it's the Giants, so I'm not surprised anyway. So that's basically my reaction for Shurmur. I mean, we kind of knew it was going to happen, and I feel bad for the guy because, as I said, I feel like he had no chance to win regardless. He definitely could have been better as a head coach, but I don't know. I think one day he'll be an offensive coordinator for some team. I don't think this is the last we'll see of him. This is probably his last head coaching job, but I think as an offensive coordinator, he can definitely succeed somewhere else, so we'll see what he does in the future. So far, the Giants right now have 3 head coaching candidates that they're looking to interview, and they are Matt Rhule, the Baylor head coach, Josh McDaniels, of course, the Patriots offensive coordinator, and Eric Bieniemy, hopefully I'm pronouncing that right, the Chiefs offensive coordinator. I had to look into him a little bit. I mean, he played running back for Colorado in college. He has been coaching for a long time. I think he coached at Colorado for a while. He was a running backs coach for years in the NFL. I think the Vikings, the Chiefs, of course, and then he was the offensive coordinator of the Chiefs the last 2 years. We all know Andy Reid calls most of the plays, if not all the plays there. So, I mean, I don't know what responsibility Bieniemy has, but he seems like a good guy. I watched a video about him. Seems like a very personable guy, a guy with a good attitude and stuff like that. I feel like a lot of players would like him as a head coach. So we'll see how the interview goes. But, you guys know how I feel about Matt Rhule. I'm very interested in him. I made a video about him like a month ago, so if you haven't watched that and if you want to know about him, then go ahead and watch that. McDaniels, I mean, of course, he coached in Denver, and I think 08 and 09. I think he went 8-8 his first year, then went like 3-9, got fired. So yeah, I mean, he had one decent year and then one bad year the next year. I don't know who was on his rosters back then. I don't think that was Tim Tebow. That might have been like Kyle Orton. I don't even know. I forget who his quarterbacks were back then. But yeah, this is definitely an attractive job for an offensive coach. I mean, you talk about a young quarterback who looks to be a franchise quarterback in Daniel Jones. You have a running back who is super talented, one of the best running backs in the league. Of course, the offensive line's not great, but you talk about Sterling Shepard, Golden Tate, Darius Slayton, Evan Engram, Caden Smith. You have receivers and just good skill position players on this offense that you can make work, hopefully. But the offensive line needs work, obviously, so that's the number one thing. Out of this list, I don't know enough about Bieniemy to really rank him, but I think between Rhule and McDaniels, I'd probably rather have Rhule, but I have not looked into McDaniels much, obviously. I looked into him a couple years ago when the Giants interviewed him, but I forget what I saw, honestly, and of course, things changed over the last 2 years. So I don't think McDaniels is going to be like a terrible head coach just because he failed once, and he didn't even fail that badly. The guy got off to a bad start one year. He went 500 one year, then went 3-9 the next year. As I said, I don't know who was on his roster. It couldn't have been that great of a roster. So, maybe, I don't know. Maybe he made some bad decisions, obviously, as a head coach. I think he had some say in personnel and possibly like a part GM as well, and that didn't go so well for him. But that was also a long time ago, and this was literally 10 years ago. So I'm assuming Josh McDaniels grew from that. I think McDaniels is only like 43 years old, I saw. So, him being a head coach at 32, 33 is probably overwhelming anyway. So, he's definitely probably learned from that experience. So, a guy like Matt Rhule, though, I feel like he's turned around 2 organizations in college, and I feel like he could do the same here, hopefully. But the thing with Matt Rhule is, as I talked about in the video for him, is last year when he interviewed for the Jets, he wanted a lot of control over, the personnel. He wanted to be like, I guess part GM, you can call it. He also wanted to bring in his own coaching staff, and I completely agree with him for that. He's not going to come in here and put his job on the line with a bunch of coaches that are just thrown at him, because, I wouldn't do that either if I was him. So Matt Rhule, if he was brought here, is going to bring his own coaches. He's going to have say in personnel. And I don't know if John Mara is going to allow him to do that. So that's the big thing. So let me know who you guys want in the comments as the future head coach of this team. Of course, I have to research more about McDaniels and Bieniemy, but Matt Rhule's a guy I'm definitely interested in. So we'll see what happens. I have no idea when this head coaching thing will be announced. I don't know if they are allowed to interview McDaniels yet, or even Bieniemy for that matter, because both teams are in the playoffs. So we'll see. But I think they can interview Matt Rhule pretty soon. It seems like there's mutual interest on both sides there. So we'll see if they get something done with him. But yeah, Pat Shurmur's gone. So I'm sure a lot of you are happy about it. But being happy because someone's fired is kind of stupid. If we were sitting here and Dave Gettleman was fired, I wouldn't be that happy about it, because it all depends who you replace them with. Like, if they fired Gettleman and then replaced him with another moron, I'd be like, well, we're back to where we were before. So, I wasn't going to come on here and be, like, ecstatic that Gettleman was fired, because that's just stupid. You know what I mean? You have to replace him with the right guy. I don't hate Gettleman as a person. Seems like a good guy. I would definitely take him as a grandfather, probably. He seems like he's a funny guy and can tell some good stories. So, seems like a good person. I just don't like the way he builds a football team. But, yeah. So, you can be happy all you want about Shumur being gone, but the grass isn't always greener on the other side, and hopefully they find a better head coach next year, but it's no guarantee. If these guys fail, then maybe they move on to a Jason Garrett, Mike McCarthy, and then I'll want to blow my brains out. So, yeah, hopefully that doesn't happen, but we'll see in the future. So, thanks for watching, guys, and I'll talk to you next time.